We've got your shot at tickets to this weekend's border battle all week long. And all you got to do is show us your purple preset. Set KFAN as a preset on the iHeartRadio app. Screenshot it. Post it with the hashtag KFAN Purple Preset to your social media. Make sure you follow and tag KFAN as well. Winners will be DM'd this Friday. Full rules, KFAN.com, keyword contest.
All right, we're back here on the Bumper to Bumper. I am not Dan Barreiro. I'm Alec Lewis. I cover the Vikings for The Athletic, and we have Ben Leber on the horn. Got a couple texts from the text line. If you ever cook, you know steak is way more juicy than chicken. It's super easy. Netflix is genius. A great barbecue mind puts their meat in a Cambro food insulated box. I need a text line just for life, I think, Ben, but they've got ideas. How important do you feel it has been for the Vikings to keep Brian Flores in the building?
I think it's hugely important. I think everybody enjoys his scheme, and it seems like he's had, firsthand influence in getting certain players that fit his scheme to this roster. And so, him sort of collaborating with Kwesi and his group to get these guys in, to maybe have a pretty heavy hand and maybe the guys that we're drafting. I think that he's hugely important, but I also get it. I didn't get a chance to listen to what you were talking about at the start of the show, but unless there's any recent developments, it sounds like he was offered a contract extension. I'm sure there's just starting the negotiating process, so it's probably not even close to being, finalized if they are going to agree upon something. But I've also heard the Cowboys situation. Obviously, there's going to be some head coaching opportunities if owners can get past all of the legal stuff. But I think it's going to be really hard to keep him. But I want to keep him a lot.
Yeah. No, there's no new development. I did, it was interesting. Kind of at the top, I was just talking about his personnel background, and you hit it there, that his influence on personnel, it's probably gone a little bit under the radar of just how influential he has been when you're talking about Blake Cashmans of the world and the Jonathan Grenards of the world and Andrew Van Ginkel and Harrison Smith coming back. All of that stuff has his fingerprints on it. And so my point kind of from the outset is like, needing him in the building is beyond what you see on Sundays. It's kind of the vision that he has from a roster standpoint that he comes with as well.
Yeah, and also I think it's a trust that KOC has. I don't know this completely to be 100% accurate, but it sounds like from what I've heard that he kind of lets B-Flow just run the defense. Yeah. It's like, all right, I trust you enough that you're going to do your thing during the week. Obviously, we're going to get together and talk a little bit about scheme and game plan and what the thought is at the start of the week. But for the most part, he kind of lets B-Flow just truly run the defense. And then that way he can focus on head coaching duties and being the offensive coordinator. So I think that is huge, to possibly have to lose him and then groom somebody else either within or bring somebody else in. Are you going to have that same level of trust? I don't know, but right now it seems like they've got it and allows everybody to have their very specific roles and focus on what they need to during the week.
No question. A couple more, and then we'll get you out of here on this Monday afternoon. But how are you? This is not something you and I have talked about, so I wanted to broach it. How are you thinking about the quarterback position and the future of it? With one game to play in this season and the offseason forthcoming, we'll see if J.J. McCarthy's healthy enough to go on Sunday or not. But just how have you thought about the quarterback position, and specifically as it relates to the future?
I think from an on-field performance, I am very optimistic about what I see. I think he's actually, like, every game he's taken a step. Every game I feel like there's a new notch to the leadership and the ownership part of it. And, I know that there's got to be, there has been a meeting in the middle as far as what he's capable of running as with KOC's offense and what KOC's been willing to pare down to make him play faster. It's working. And now that we have a jumping off point, I think that's obviously only going to progress and build and build and build to where eventually, let's say a year from now, we are he's fully in KOC's offense. We see more explosive plays. He's seeing the ball get down the field a lot more. And, it's kind of like, okay, this is business as usual. It is going to take some time to get there. So I think, I understand that people are frustrated. We want immediate results, but, it takes these young quarterbacks a long, long time to get very comfortable with everything. And I'm willing to play the long game. The thing that I am disappointed by is just his ability to play. Like, can you be available for 17 games plus a playoff run and hopefully a championship run? I mean, that is a lot of games, and he has not proven that he can handle the length and the strenuous schedule of an NFL season. So that, to me, is the biggest concern. Can he stay physically healthy and mentally engaged through all of that, playing through pain? I understand that, some things are going to be painful, i.e. this hand situation. But look, man, this is a time to prove it to your teammates that you're a tough dude. You're going to go out there and battle for them. And, if he can grip that football, even if it's painful, you got to go out there and you got to give it a shot. Yeah.
It would be, I think, important for him to provide somewhat of a closing argument into the offseason in terms of what the insurance will look like. You have your Sierra Nevada Hop Splash Player of the Game. I know that was last Thursday. It's a week-to-week league, and you're on to the next game. But I am curious who you would choose to be your Sierra Nevada Hop Splash Player of the Game from last Thursday.
Well, just to get everybody caught up, and for you specifically,
Thank you.
Now my Hop Splash Player of the Game is not always. It's intended to be the guys that fly under the radar. It's not the splashiest player, the guy that makes all the big plays. I mean, that would probably go to Gank or to Harrison Smith. I look for the guys that statistically maybe don't blow up the stat sheets, but I'm like, hey man, they got to give this guy some shine. I think he played really solid. A week ago was Jonathan Allen. And I think this last week against the Lions, I was really impressed with what Jay Ward did, So
Agreed.
I'm going to give this week's award to Jay Ward. And, there is a little bit more behind it. They have asked him lately to kind of play a lot of different positions. And I think that versatility is really important for his future here with the Vikes. And I think he only ended up with 5 tackles, but there's a smooth explosiveness that he plays with. He could be in the deep middle of the field and then slowly drifting down into a run fit, and then all of a sudden at the point of attack, he's popping some dude and driving that guy backwards, and you're like, where did that come from? There's just a violence the way that he plays, but it's a quiet violence, and it's kind of fun to watch on film.
That's a good pick. Yeah, he is. You're right. Like, he moves fluidly, he's smooth, and he's explosive, and it's been fun to see him get some opportunities and do some different things like the last few weeks. One of those young players who will be interesting to kind of watch probably moving forward. Ben, thanks for hopping on this Monday afternoon. That is legend Ben Leber. To those listening, thank you. Appreciate it.
No, honestly, when you do this again, you don't have to go with that.
No, I know I don't actually have to, but it's kind of it's uncomfortable for you. It's kind of the whole idea.
That's exactly, Alec. I don't want it to be uncomfortable for me.
It's all right. Sometimes you just got to play through it. That's part of it. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. Talk to you later.
That is Ben Leber on the Bumper to Bumper program. I'm Alec Lewis, in for Dan Barreiro here on this Monday afternoon. Brett Blakemore is producing, and we will be right back for the final segment on KFAN. All right, final segment here. I'm Alec Lewis, Vikings beat writer at The Athletic. You can follow me on social media at Alec_Lewis for a lot of bad takes. And then I have a podcast where we do this type of thing, take questions from Vikings fans 2 times a week, wherever you get your podcast. Brett, you want to rip some questions real quick? Why not?
I love it.
Okay.
What could go wrong?
Literally nothing from the text line. This is 64686. If you want to get a question here, you got about 5 minutes to do it. We're just going to run through them.
Might be closer to 10.
Someone asks from the 651, can the Flores scheme be replicated by someone else in the building should he leave? So the way I'd answer that question is, if you're just talking about are there coaches in the Vikings building who could teach Brian Flores similar type scheme? The answer would be yes, but there is something to Brian Flores's probably disposition and the way he can generate trust and buy-in from the players that would be really hard to replicate. I said this earlier, but like if you're looking for internal names who could potentially, if Brian Flores were to leave, guys who would, I would monitor, it'd be Durante Jones, the defensive backs coach, defensive pass game coordinator, Mike Saravo, linebackers coach, and then potentially outside linebackers coach, Thad Bogertis. All of those guys are capable and know the system well, but, you're asking a heck of a lot to have somebody who has not done the job not only teach it, but then call plays with the amount of buy-in that Brian Flores obviously has internally.
I'll double down. I'll ask a question on my own. I won't text in, though. I'll just ask you.
That works.
Do you think there's any world? I mean, my gut feeling on it is he's not going to leave unless Fitz' head coaching job. Is that the general vibe as well? Like, yeah, could Dallas pay him a boatload of money? Maybe. Are there high-paying suitors out there? Sure. But I feel like that would be the only thing to get him to leave. Is that the general consensus for you as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think conservatively that's the right way to look at it, is that, Brian Flores from a head coaching perspective, that would be the most obvious path. And then you talk about Dallas, and that has been in the ether. You've heard a lot of the Cowboys were really impressed with him in the game at AT&T Stadium. They're going to need a defensive coordinator with firing Matt Eberflus. But the thing that you're asking, with Brian Flores, when you're talking about Dallas, like how much latitude is Jerry Jones? How much latitude would that Cowboys front office be willing to give Brian Flores from a personnel perspective? He has a lot of say here, Brian Flores does, and some of the signings and some of the free agents, in a lot of the evaluation. So expecting Jerry Jones to pass that off is probably, you're expecting a lot. Going to get to a couple more of these, Brett, before we take off here. Someone asked, will Alec Lewis be tuning into the World Junior Hockey Tournament tonight? It's possible. I mean, it's possible. Look, there's a lot on TV tonight. You've got Kirk Cousins against the Los Angeles Rams. You've got, the Wild, believe, are playing this evening. You've got the Timberwolves this evening. So you're asking a lot for me to get to the Junior World Hockey Tournament, but I'm not above it. I'm really not. Like, it sounds like Brett Blakemore might be leaving me to go watch hockey here in a second. So
I got to go to the X.
Yeah, I mean,
or
look,
what formerly was the X.
Grand Casino Arena. That's what it is, Brett. So Brett will be tuned in. I can tell you that. Next question from the 612. Why is everyone saying Joe Burrow is coming to Minnesota, or how would we even get him? It has been, it's like the rumor similar to, let's say Justin Jefferson gets frustrated on the sidelines, and then you've got all fans nationally, on social media saying Justin Jefferson wants out. That's just kind of the dynamic of what this Joe Burrow conversation has become. What I would say is this. To acquire Joe Burrow, it is going to cost the sun, the moon, and the stars. If that opportunity were to present itself, and I don't expect it to, because I don't know why the Cincinnati Bengals would trade Joe Burrow, given what he means to that organization, but I would expect the Vikings to explore it if that opportunity presented itself. That's where the conversation begins and ends for me. All right, couple more here. I'm Alec Lewis. I cover the Vikings for The Athletic, in for Dan Barreiro here in our final segment of the afternoon. Let's see here. Does KOC tailor the offense to get Justin Jefferson his 1,000-yard season? I don't need to belabor this point. The answer would be absolutely. I would expect most of the passing concepts on Sunday between the Vikings and Packers to be tailored toward Justin Jefferson attaining the 1,000-yard mark. Next question, is Van Ginkel under contract through next season? Yes, he is. He received an extension this past offseason. And, I mean, man, he's been so good when he's been healthy. Andrew Van Ginkel, still probably one of the most underrated players in the NFL. And it took a while for him midseason to get his body right to feeling comfortable enough to be out there and producing the way he has. But he did that. I mean, he got his body right, had multiple evaluations on what was a neck injury at the time. And to see him come back and be as influential and impactful has been really important. Next question from Tim in San Diego. Who wins in an arm wrestling battle? Michael Russo or me? Michael Russo would crush me. He's the best in the game. Maybe not at arm wrestling, but definitely at covering hockey. Alec, is it possible Jordan Addison gets traded? Could we keep Speedy, and will Van Ginkel be back? So Van Ginkel will be back. You know, a Jordan Addison trade is, I mean, I would say on the very low end of probability. Is it possible? It's always possible depending on what offers would be. But in a perfect world, this has been a down season for Jordan Addison. He obviously was suspended for the first 3 games. He was held out of the first quarter in the London game against Cleveland, but then he showed up at the end of that game, made plays. There have been a lot of drops from Jordan Addison this season. Has not been his typical year, but in a perfect world, I think the Vikings would want him paired with Justin Jefferson. Just the route running ability that those guys have pieced together is kind of what they've wanted the identity of this Vikings team to be. The passing game, route running, separation down the field, aggressive downfield passing. That's the way they've built this roster. That's kind of been the vision. I don't see that kind of changing now. Someone asked much earlier about Malik Willis. Alec, please talk about if we would acquire Malik, or if we should acquire Malik Willis from Green Bay. I'd take him over JJ. It's been interesting to watch Malik Willis in Green Bay over the last, couple of weeks since he's been thrown into the fire with Jordan Love having the concussion. He's definitely played himself into a starter caliber contract, Malik Willis has. So, I mean, that is for certain. Now, whether the Vikings would be willing to be the team to pay him that contract, I think that's a very interesting question. He's not throwing vertically over the middle of the field a ton. So that is definitely one facet to the evaluation of his fit here. But he's athletic. For me, I imagine like Malik Willis fitting best in a place like Miami, where he is working with Mike McDaniel, a part of that run game with Devon Achane. If they could somehow shoulder the cost of what he would, what Malik Willis is going to ask, being represented by David Mulgeta, probably the most prominent agent in the NFL. It's going to cost for Malik Willis, and then there are probably going to be multiple suitors, whether it is Miami, whether it is Las Vegas, whether it is potentially here, Atlanta. I mean, there are a lot of places that Malik Willis could fit. A couple more questions here, and then we are going to dip out for the evening here on the program, the Bumper to Bumper program. I'm Alec Lewis, filling in for Dan Barreiro. What about CJ Ham? And then someone says, we need you more with Common. I'm on to hang out with Common at any time. I don't ever really know what's going on when I am sitting in the same room as him. And I also don't understand how he does a show with like zero prep and it's all top of mind. It's kind of blows me away, but he's one of one. CJ Ham currently is not under contract. I have thought that CJ, with this Vikings offense over the last few weeks, leaning into heavier personnel, I have thought that has really worked. So with what he can do, it would make sense for me to re-sign CJ Ham in the next season. Question-wise, that will do it. If you have more questions, Viking specific, You can toss them at me on social media at Alec_Lewis. I do a podcast 2 times a week, cover the Vikings for The Athletic. It was an honor and a privilege to be here sitting in for Dan Barreiro and to have Brett Blakemore producing by my side. Should be an interesting week finale for the Viking season, and I'll be in Eagan with Paul Allen and Eric Nordquist for the Friday Football Feast on Friday. Thank you guys for listening. Drive safe out there. We'll have some Vikings Rewind and some junior hockey coming up for you later this evening. This is KFAN, the best in the game. Have a great one.